RooCode versus Manus. I'm going to show you today a free Manus AI agent alternative. So if you don't have access to Manus and you want something that's really quick and easy to set up, that's actually in many ways more powerful than Manus, then make sure you keep watching. So essentially Manus is super powerful, but it's also quite buggy. So you can see here, for example, this conversation is loading, but it's actually from 3 days ago. And on top of that, you actually get a limited number of requests inside Manus. I think from what I've seen, it's like maybe 3 task requests per day. Additionally, when you're using this, it cannot write content locally on your laptop unless you download it. And also, it gets stuck. And I'll show you what it means. For example, sometimes you reach the maximum daily usage limit, which is a bit frustrating. And also, you can see here, for example, sometimes you get stuck directly in the chat and I can't deploy this, right? I can't do anything more for you. You've reached the maximum context limit. So we're going to be testing this side by side versus RooCode. And RooCode is like Manus, very similar to Manus. They both use Claude, right? They both use Claude 3.7 Sonnet. But inside RooCode, you can actually have this use your browser directly, and it can use your logins. It can write code and build and automate things locally. Plus, it can log into, say, ChatGPT and start conversating with it directly. It can do all sorts of crazy stuff, right? And you can also use this for free. So if you want to use this for free, you can switch over to Google Gemini, get a free API key from aistudio.google.com, and then plug that in and start using this all for free. The other difference is here, the inside Manus, you're not going to be running MCP servers connected to Plexi or whatever you want, whereas inside RooCode, you actually can. So let me show you an example what this means in practice. So if we go to a previous example right here, what I actually did was I asked RooCode with Claude's AI agent to conduct comprehensive keyword research using Ahrefs to identify low competition keywords, blah, blah, blah. And it just went off and did it. It found some low competition keywords relevant to my SEO agency. You got the keyword difficulty over here, the traffic potential, etc. Super easy and powerful to set up, right? And it's logged into my account, so it can just use the account. It can get the data from there. Now, if you do the same thing inside Manus, right, and this is one of the downfalls of it. So if we go inside Manus here and we'll say, right, new task, go and do this, right? And we'll say, go off and do that. Because it doesn't have the login details, it's not going to be able to do it for you, right? If this is connected to the internet, obviously you don't want to give your login details directly to the SaaS software. If it was running locally, it's very different. But if it's inside a software, it's not going to be able to log in directly. Now, you could take control and intervene manually, but that kind of defeats the object of the whole thing, right? It's like you want something really autonomous. You want something that can just go off and do things for you, right? Whereas if we go into RooCode, it can actually just go off and do its magic directly for you, right? So we'll try again now. I'll show you this in real time. So if we say, do this, all right, RooCode is going to go off and do this. And the other thing here, we'll wait for that to load, right? So you can see it's like opening up the tab here and it's navigating, etc. It's going to be a lot faster, right? So you see here how Manus is, I've completed the current task and I'm ready for any revisions or questions, but it hasn't done what we've asked it to do, right? Which is do this, go and do the keyword research. Whereas, for example, with RooCode, because it can log into Ahrefs and because it's directly inside the browser, it can just go off and start searching stuff directly without you having to intervene, right? So you can see here how it's doing the keyword research directly, really simple and easy to use. And it's not playing games here, right? It's actually doing the task you want it to do. So if you actually compare these side by side, Manus has failed this task. It only managed to get to the login dashboard and then it convinced itself like it actually did the work, but it didn't, right? Whereas, for example, with RooCode, actually went off and did its magic directly. And so that's one of the biggest differences here. Is like, in some ways, RooCode's computer use agent is more autonomous than using Manus. The other thing here as well is I think I heard something crazy. I don't know if this is true, but I heard something crazy like Manus has a waiting list of 2 million people, which is pretty wild, right? And so you're going to be waiting a long time if you try and get access to Manus. Some people have got early access, but they've got very limited numbers of usages. And by the way, I think this code is finished. Yeah, you can see it's finishing off right now. So Manus, you can only use, I think, about 3 to 5 times per day. Whereas with RooCode and this AI agent, you can use this as much as you want because all you've done is you've connected your API key I've connected Anthropic because it's got computer use, and obviously that's the best API to use if you want to have something really autonomous. And you can also see how it's navigating and using the web without me right here. This is way easier and faster than using Manus, right? Whereas Manus, I'm going to be limited. I can't build an army of AI agents. I can only have 1 or 2 running per day. And this is one of the reasons that I've actually gradually stopped using Manus. Like, it is amazing. Don't get me wrong. It's built some amazing stuff. But at the same time, it's not as autonomous and it is limited versus Roo Code, right? Whereas Roo Code is all logged in right here. So there's some big advantages right here. We've talked about no daily limits. We've talked about no invitation code required. You can just set up Roo Code today if you want to. You can also have it running in the background whilst you do other stuff. So for example, we can have this tab open. And then if we go over to the AI profit boardroom and do stuff there, like no issues, right? That AI agent is just going to be doing its magic for us. The other thing here as well is it's really simple and easy to use. So if you go to the IDs inside the AI profit boardroom, link in the comments and description, and then you go to the Roo Code and computer use section right here, there's a full SOP on like exactly how to set this up. So if you want to set this stuff up and learn exactly how I set it up, then you can get that and the instructions here for both Windows and Mac. And then you can see it's just gathering some keywords and doing its magic. All right. You can see the power of this, how different it is. The other thing here as well is if we X off that, we can actually run MCP servers directly, right? So Manus isn't able to do this. Let me show you an example of what I mean, right? So if we go to view all, and you'll see an example of me setting up Perplexity MCP server over here. And all I did was say, set up this MCP server, use this API key. It went off and it set up. What does that mean? It means it can use Perplexity independently without us. And it pulls in all the data, all the info right here. It can send messages, it can gather data, it can do deep research, etc. Right? Really easy. And it usually has to do that, right? And then if we go to our MCP servers inside Roo Code, we can set up multiple ones. So we've got Perplexity Ask right there, but we could add many other MCPs if we want. We just need the GitHub link and the API key if it's required. That's how easy it is to set up. Whereas if you go to Manus and you're like, okay, set up the MCP server for Perplexity, we'll ask it to do its magic right there. It's not going to be able to do that. And let's look at this, right? So I've reached the maximum daily limit already. So as much as I love Manus and like, I honestly like really appreciate getting early access to it and everything like that. But it's just, which one is better here? Which one is more useful right here? Of course, it's Roo Code, because Roo Code isn't going to run out of requests, especially on a live stream on YouTube, whereas Manus does struggle with that. It can only do certain things. It's very limited in terms of the way you can use it and how many times you can use it. And the thing here is if you really want to be productive, if you want to use the full power of AI agents and have one agent go off and do keyword research for you, maybe one agent go off and write a blog post for you, one agent's going to start using Perplexity, etc., then, inside Roo Code, you can do that. That's no problem. You can just have multiple windows open, like you can see right here, right? We've got multiple windows open. Whereas, for example, inside Manus, it seems like we can maybe use this 2 times a day. Let's have a look. How many times have I used this today? I've used it once. Yeah, just 1 time. So I just used Manus once today, and then I tried to use it again, and we hit the daily usage limit during the beta testing period. So Manus, I can use once today, whereas Roo Code, I can use unlimited times. So there's so many different benefits to this. If you're not using Roo Code and you want to get access to something like Manus, you'd be crazy not to set this up. Like, it's so powerful and it's so useful. And we've really only looked at the surface level of this, right? So here's another one. We can actually code locally. So for example, if we take this prompt that I've actually used inside Manus before, we're going to open up a new tab here. We're going to go inside here and we're going to say, build a website, not an app, just HTML. All right. And then we're going to do all of this, blah, blah, blah. And we can actually code locally using Roo Code, right? So you can see here how it's figured out, okay, here's what you need, here's what you want to do, etc. It's going to start figuring out, okay, here's the directory that we're going to build it in. It can run commands locally on our laptop. There's no usage limit. We can just build whatever we want locally using Roo Code. Right? So we'll run through the commands here and I'll show you exactly how easy this is to set up. And you can see now it's coding locally for that project, right? Which is something, number one, you can't do that in Manus. And number two, if you do it in Manus, you can only do it like once a day, right? So this is a really viable alternative that no one really talks about or knows about. So you can see here how it's building this all out, step by step. We'll come back to that in a minute. But it's very autonomous. And literally the only prompting that we did here was this one right here. Super simple. Now, Manus can build out really cool stuff. If you haven't seen this already, I've actually added inside the AI Profit Boardroom some of the best stuff that I've built out with this. So let's go up here, go to Build Anything section. You can check out some of the stuff that I built with Manus, and some of it is super impressive, right? So let me open up some of these examples whilst Roo Code is building out its magic. So you can see, for example, we built out a fantasy game in Three.js right here. We've also got, for example, an AI SEO content writer, which is pretty nice, to be fair. It's not the best design in the world, but you can see we built this out with Manus, and it's hosted on a subdomain. I mean, that is one thing that you can't do inside Roo Code. You can't set up a Manus subdomain, right? Whereas, for example, in Manus, you can host and build anything you want inside a subdomain directly on there. This is another tool that we built out. We built out a full website using Manus, so you can build some absolutely amazing stuff. But really, if you compare them side by side, it's like Roo Code is winning because it's more autonomous. It can code locally. It gives you more requests per day. You don't have to wait for an invite code. And you can see it just runs in the background whilst we do everything else. So it's starting to create all of that out right now. We can also build multiple projects at a time if we want to. If you want to know, okay, how much is this costing us? So I'm using Claude 3.7 Sonnet, obviously, which is not that cheap, right? So for example, if you go to the API cost section over here, you can see how much this is costing us to do this stuff. The thing about this is probably when Manus is out of beta and it's ready for everyone to use, it is going to cost, I don't know how much it's going to cost, but I'm sure they could charge hundreds, if not thousands per year for that. And also inside Roo Code, if you go to the settings and then you select Gemini as your API key for building stuff out, then that's completely free. And then it really just comes down to which API you use. For installing Roo Code and Visual Studio Code itself, that is completely free. You don't need to pay for that. All right. Some people might be asking about the security of these sort of tools. I don't honestly know. I think if you want to play it safe, you would host this in a virtual environment, right? So if you want to be really safe, for example, like getting Roo Code to use your browser and everything else, just set up a totally different browser. Maybe you run it in Chromium instead, which is kind of like remote and it's a bit safer, etc. But we've got the AI SEO content writer tool here, and that's built out and ready to go. And it's looking pretty good. All right, so this is the tool that we built out. We'll compare it versus Manus side by side. So let me pull this up. We've got the ASEO tool from Manus over here, and we'll compare them side by side versus Claude. Let's pull this up. All right. Biggest difference here is this is hosted locally, and this is hosted with Manus. All right. So if we compare them side by side, let's pull them up right here. I actually really like the design from this, so it looks a lot cleaner. Here we go. And also this one, I remember with Manus, it took me about 1 hour to build this out, whereas this took me, like 5-10 minutes maximum, because we just did it live with that prompt. So we've completed the ASEO content writer website. You've got the one from Manus here, and you've got the one from Roo Code here. Which one do you prefer the UI of? Honestly, for me, I'm going to go with this one, right? Also, this is hosted locally, so we can just edit the files whenever we need it. And this one is hosted on Manus, which means that we get less freedom over building it and editing it and everything else. Also, if we scroll down here, you've got like nice little icons, for example, for OpenAI. So it looks a bit nicer. You can insert the API key. You can select between the different options here. We can put in the target keyword, content outline, and we are ready to go on that. Additionally, it's got links to my funnels. And if you compare like this section, for example, Julian Goldie's SEO services section, this section right here looks a lot nicer than this section over here. Right? So the UI is actually much nicer using this process with Roo Code instead of Manus. And that's what I mean. Like Manus is good, but I would say at this point, Roo Code might be better. And also this is hosted locally. So crazy stuff. Now, some people are asking, okay, like what do you need to run Roo Code locally? So for Roo Code running it locally, I'm using a MacBook Pro M3. I don't know what you need to set up. I'm not that technical. But for me, MacBook Pro M3, it's not even the latest one. and it's working fine, right? It's not slow at all. It's doing its magic really quickly. It's setting this up super quickly, and you're getting better outputs than Manus using exactly the same prompt. The prompt that we use to build this is exactly the prompt that we use to build this, but the difference is this is a nice UI, and it looks much nicer. All right, so that's the difference right here. Let's check how many words are on the page here as well. So if you count the words up, is it similar word count? It's not telling me, so it's not very useful, but I think the content on this page seems to be a bit longer. The only thing that I want to test here is, does this actually work? So let's test this out now. Bear in mind, something like Jasper, I think they raised millions of dollars to build something like this, whereas you can just build out with Roo Code autonomously, and you just give it one prompt and boom, you're ready to go. And if you want the prompt for this, just check out the AI Profit boardroom with the prompt for building stuff like this. So what I'm going to do in the background is I'm going to grab a OpenAI key. I've plugged it in right here. We're going to put the keyword SEO trend in Japan, for example. Then we'll hit generate content. I don't know if this is going to work, but we'll see if it does or not. All right. And it seems to have done it. Wow, that was fast. How fast was that? We even got a nice little SEO score. So actually, wow, that's crazy. It actually went off and did it. That is crazy. Let's try the same thing inside Manus. So this is the API. I'm going to plug my API key into the Manus tool over here. We'll do exactly the same keyword. It's SEO trend in Japan. Hit generate SEO content. I don't want to insert a content outline, but I'll just put like SEO trend in Japan and use your imagination. All right. And look at that. Manus doesn't work. Are you kidding me? So the tool that we built with Roo Code, using exactly the same prompt, it looks nicer and it's actually working first time round. The tool that we built with Manus, it doesn't work. The API key is broken. It's giving us an error. And because we've run out of usage limits on Manus, we can't go back and fix it, right? Whereas if we want to improve this and we want to improve the outputs of this, then all we need to do is go over to Roo Code over here and just ask it to do that, right? Super simple and easy. So you can see that actually in many ways, Roo Code is more autonomous. It builds better stuff. It has many other advantages that Manus doesn't have, and it's not going to cost you anything apart from the API credits, right? Now, also, if you want to know, okay, how much does that cost? You can see the cost right here. And again, you just need to make sure when you're doing all of this that you set up the computer use properly, right? I've got all the instructions in the SOP inside the AI Profit boardroom. But the thing to note here is like you have to be careful because you want to make sure that you've got the local host running and a debugged version of Chrome, right, to get this connected and using the browser. So that's just one example of this. Let's pull up another example here. So I'm going to say now over in a new chat, I'm going to say create a presentation about how autonomous AI agents could change the world. All right. Use the Perplexity MCP server to do the research. Then turn that into a beautiful landing page that's modern, interesting, and has a sleek design. All right, so basically what it's going to do is create a presentation. It's going to research using Perplexity's MCP server, and then it's going to turn that into a beautiful modern landing page. All right, let's see what it does now. So it's figuring out, okay, here's exactly what we need to do. Here's how we're going to do it, etc. It's running that query. We have to approve it, of course. It's doing its magic. And it's running the terminal commands. Now it's building out the HTML page, which you can see right here. Now, if you want to see an example of what this looked like with, let me pull this up. Let's exit off that. If you want to see an example of what this looked like with Manus, here's an example, right? So it's pretty basic. It did the job. It built out some nice charts and stuff like that, but it's super, super basic. It also wasn't that personalized, right? And it felt really like a lot of AI fluff in there. For example, like in the rapidly evolving landscape, like ChatGPT has been saying that since October 2023. So you get the point. So we're going to wait for that to load. It's starting to build it out here. Let's see what it does. Then it's building out the HTML. Now it's creating the CSS, like you can see. So it's creating the colors and figuring all that out as well. The other thing I like about Claude is like it's really good for front-end design, so it looks pretty nice. And once that's loading, I did notice the MCP server before was not working, but when I set it up in here, it works perfectly, right? So you can see it actually ran and completed the Perplexity MCP server. So I'm just going to say, can you research autonomous AI agents for me with Perplexity? We'll see if that works. If you're wondering about the API key for Claude, yeah, just go to console.anthropic.com, then grab the API key from there. You can just grab it and then plug it into your settings with computer use. So that has come back to us and worked perfectly. So it's using the Perplexity MCP server. It's done the research right here. You can see the response from Perplexity. And then go back to the file and you can see it's now coding out the JS. So it did the HTML, coded the CSS. By the way, I'm not a coder at all. Like, I cannot code at all. I've never learned how to code. I think I did try and learn for like 2 weeks and totally gave up. But that's okay, because AI can do it for me. It can do it better than most developers. And there we have the website ready to go. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful, right? Now, if you compare the design of this versus this, the difference is crazy, right? Look at that. Like, how much better does that UI look versus, and this is a whole presentation page, peeps, all right? But how much better does that look versus the Manus presentation? Like, it's wild. Exactly the same prompt, exactly the same process, exactly the same API. They're both using Claude, but you get a much better output from Roo Code. So that is what I'm talking about, peeps. The world doesn't know yet. I actually only learned this through Income Stream Servers. Like, he did an awesome video. I already credited him in my video yesterday, but you get the point. Like, this is super powerful stuff and nobody is talking about it, but it's probably the best agent that I've seen on the web right now. So you can see it's run the API requests. It's used the MCP servers as well. Loads of good benefits, and this is free, right? Roo Code is free. VisualStudioCode.com is free. If you want to use the API for free, then you would just use Google, not Anthropic. And you can do things better than Manus. Plus, it's more independent, it's more autonomous, right? So, pretty cool stuff right there. And if you want to get the full recipe on setting that up, plus all of my workflows for AI agents, feel free to get that inside the AI Profit Boardroom. So inside the AI Profit Boardroom, you see all our best automations for email, social media, AI agents, web automation, SEO automation, NA10 templates, a crash course in saving hundreds of hours of AI, plus SOPs, right? Now, the AI Profit Boardroom also comes with weekly Q&As with us, so you can jump on the weekly Q&A, so like you see right here, if you have any questions. And if you're struggling in the meantime, you can post inside the community and ask any questions you have, right? So you can see here, for example, people ask questions, and we just answer them right here. You can see how much help this person got. 13 different people jumped in to help them when they asked a question inside the AI Profit Boardroom. So feel free to get that link in the comments and the description. And this also comes with the recipe for setting up Roo Code directly, which you can see right here. Because you have to set up the debug inside Chrome and it's a bit technical, blah, blah, blah. But if you have the right prompts, which I show inside the recipe, then it's just like a case of copying and pasting. And if you want to get a free one-to-one SEO strategy session, feel free to get that. Link in the comments and description. We'll show you how to take websites from 0 to 145,000 business a month and generate hundreds of thousands of dollars in sales on autopilot. On this free link building acceleration session, you get a custom tailored plan so you can generate more leads and sales profits from your website, and you'll get all your questions answered one-to-one on a free link building acceleration session. Plus, you'll learn how to 10x SEO traffic so you get more leads, sales, and customers to your website from Google. Feel free to get that link in the comments and the description.